Hi, guys. Welcome to week 6 assignment. This is called Colonial Food and Cultural Diffusion. This week, your project is going to include my favorite topic of all time, which of course is food. I am food obsessed, and I decided to create a lesson that's going to have you guys looking at the history of foods that we eat currently. So, in your directions for slides, we have a breakdown of what it's going to look like. This video is going to be a lesson of how to proceed with these slides. On slide 4, we're going to define the term cultural diffusion. We're going to read about what food can tell us. We are going to cover the history of corn. Yes, kids, you read that right. The history of corn. I'm going to introduce the favorite recipe project and review the instructions. And then it's up to you guys to do your own research about your favorite food. So let's continue. In this lesson, you guys are going to be able to define the term cultural diffusion. You're going to be able to trace the spreading of certain beliefs, practices, and ideas using different foods as sources of information. Let's start by defining the term cultural diffusion. This should be familiar to you guys now that you've learned about the Columbian Exchange. Cultural diffusion is the spread of cultural practices, beliefs, and things like food or music or tools or clothes that are going to spread from one group of people to another. If you guys remember back to the Columbian Exchange, this is an example of cultural diffusion because different food groups and different animals that are really important to cultures of both Europe and the New World are going to spread and exchange. They're going to switch continents and spread all over the world. That is cultural diffusion. Cultural diffusion is really easy to see in some of our favorite foods. Most of the foods that we eat are really the combination of different cultures coming together and spreading techniques, ideas, and food science. So there are a couple of popular foods that we still eat today that are the direct result of cultural diffusion. Specifically, they are the result of indigenous or Native Americans mixing ideas and foods and ingredients with European cultures. These are going to come together to make foods that we eat, both in history and to this day. 3 things that we continue to eat that were the product of these cultures coming together include maple syrup, flapjacks or pancakes, and of course, my personal favorite on the list, tacos. So let's take a look at the origins of these foods. As you guys remember from our previous days, North America and South America are going to be called the New World by European settlers. Specifically, we have New Spain, we have New France, and New England, which is the result of the British settlers. So we have settlers from Britain, France, and Spain that are going to come to the New World in this unit that we are in that are going to create certain food groups. So the first one comes from New France, woohoo, which we're learning about this week. New France, or this area here, especially in Canada that was settled by the French, these groups are going to come together to make maple syrup. Maple syrup is first made by the native peoples of North America, and this science and this practice is going to be adopted by European settlers in Canada, especially the French. The French Canadians become masters at making maple syrup, and to this day, the French Canadian province of Quebec is responsible for 70% of the world supply of delicious, delicious maple syrup. And where would we be with maple syrup if we didn't have pancakes, also known as flapjacks? We know that settlers in New England are going to try to stretch their ingredients to save money. So what they're going to do is take a little bit of European style flour, which is made with wheat, and they're going to mix it with ground corn that they learned to make from the Native Americans. They're going to mix this together with eggs and milk and all kinds of delicious things, and then fry them in butter in a pan and flip them. And that is where pancakes come from, or at least the style that we're more familiar with. I know I grew up with New England style pancakes. So thank you very much, New Englanders and Native Americans. I'm very appreciative of those tasty flapjacks. And lastly, I just wanted to talk about tacos. Tacos are probably my favorite dinner, except for my favorite recipe, which is at the bottom of the slideshow. Tacos have a pretty complicated history. We know that corn tortillas, in particular, are going to predate the arrival of the Spanish in Mexico. So when we were learning about Hernando Cortez and the Aztecs, they were already eating corn tortillas before that time. However, the tacos that we recognize typically have some kind of meat and spices in them that are going to be brought into the New World by the Spanish, especially beef. I know carne asada tacos are delicious, as are ground beef tacos. This beef is going to come from livestock brought into Mexico from the Spanish. So the dish that we eat today really became popular in the 1850s, and they continue to be one of the most popular street foods in the world. So thank you, Spanish. Thank you, Indigenous people, for the taco. All right, moving on. I would like you guys to watch this video and answer questions about the history of corn. Yes, I said that, the history of corn. It's actually really interesting and it's going to change the world forever. Please pause this video now to watch this video and to answer the following questions. When you continue on, I would like you guys to read this source number 1, which comes from the year 1636, about the topic of corn. Specifically, this old dude, John Gerard, is going to say about corn: "It is hard of digestion and gives to the body little or no nourishment. Savage Indians who know no better think it's a good food, where we may judge that it is a more convenient food for pigs than man." I would like you guys to answer the question: is this a positive or negative attitude about eating corn? Use this circle here and drag it over the correct answer. Pause until you're done and then move on to the next one. On this source, which is source number 2, this is from John Evelyn, and he wrote this about corn in 1699, which is 63 years later. "It is of easy digestion, and the New Englanders make a porridge of it to eat with milk. Makes excellent puddings." Is this a negative or positive attitude about eating corn? Use this circle to choose positive or negative. When you come to this slide, I'd like you to answer the question using those 2 sources that we just examined. Why do you think that European settlers' attitudes about eating corn changed? Why would those ideas about corn change about 63 years apart? Pause and move on when you are ready. Now we've come to the favorite recipe project. I'm super excited about this because I had so much fun doing a project about my personal favorite dinner of all time. So this is how the favorite recipe project is going to work. We want you to research and record information about the history of your favorite food. Where are the ingredients going to come from? We would like you to first pick a meal that has at least 3 parts. Make sure that there are at least 3 ingredients in this particular meal. You're going to research where each of these 3 ingredients you selected originally came from or where they were invented. Then you're going to create a diagram of the meal that includes pictures of the 3 ingredients and the information you found out about where they came from or about the origins. We'd also like you, last but not least, to copy and paste the websites where you got this information on the slide called sources. Let's jump in to my example. Dun, 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 dun. The example that I've created is on slide 13 to 15. The student template is on slide 16 to 18. Dun, 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 dun. Behold, my absolute favorite dinner of all time. It is called Cincinnati chili. And I'm very doubtful that most of you have heard from it because you grew up in upstate New York, or at least many of you did, and not in Cincinnati. Cincinnati chili is a spicy meat sauce that is served on top of spaghetti and is topped with a lot of cheddar cheese. And it was originally created in Cincinnati, Ohio by Greek and Macedonian immigrants. So these are some ingredients in my favorite food of all time. There's spaghetti, meat sauce, and cheddar cheese. So I've collected information about these things and put them into these blocks. So let's get started with spaghetti. We know that the term is Italian, but we know that these noodles may have been inspired by noodles from Asia. Interestingly enough, archaeologists believe that Central Asia is the first place to have produced noodles thousands of years ago. Thank you, Central Asians. We also know that early Spanish settlers, like the folks that went to New Spain, are going to be some of the first people to bring pasta to America. Let's talk about that delicious meat sauce. So, this meat sauce in particular was inspired by a Greek dish called pasticcio, which is layered pasta, cheese, and meat sauce flavored with cinnamon and allspice and cloves, these beautiful, spicy, warm flavors. These spices actually come from Sri Lanka, which is in the Pacific Ocean. We also know that Cincinnati chili was made very famous by the creators of Skyline chili in 1949. And lastly, we've got cheddar cheese. So, interestingly enough, the first recorded cheese from Cheddar, England, dates to the 12th century, which is the 1100s. So, it's a very old cheese. By the mid 19th century or the 1800s, we know that cheddar is going to become the most widely produced cheese in the United States and still is. So, congratulations, cheddar, for being one of the most popular cheeses. These are the sources that I used. I copied and pasted them and put them into a list. That way I can check to make sure where the information is coming from. Now it's your turn. We would like you to fill in your favorite recipe, have a picture, write a summary about what it is, what are the three ingredients that you picked and how do you get those, and list your sources here. When you're all set, you're going to answer the last question. What is one thing that surprised you about your favorite recipe? That is all. I can't wait to see these assignments, and I'm hoping to steal a lot of recipe ideas from each of you at home. See you soon.